Hey guys, Dan Warpaint JKU. As you can see, I got war paint behind me here. We're loading it up, ready for a weekend out on the trails. Check out this video if you're curious what to bring out there with you so you can avoid and fix most problems. Guys, first things first, and I feel like it goes without saying, you need a spare tire. Definitely bring a spare tire out you wherever you go off-roading. Even with these big tires that are less likely to get a flat tire, you know, clipping a curb or something out there on the street, like a normal road car, flat tires happen, especially when we're out on the trail, so you're definitely gonna wanna make sure you have that. The other cool thing about Jeeps, and it's just something to know, is that your spare tire is super important, that it's the exact same size as all your other tires, okay? A lot of people tend to cheap out with a spare tire and they tend to use an old tire or something like that, which is fine. But the problem is if you use a tire that's a different size than all the others, like if your friend's giving away a 35 and you have 37s, you're like, oh, I'll just use it as a spare. The problem with that is your wheel speed sensors. When it senses that one tire spinning faster than all the others, it's gonna cause the computer in these updated rigs to do some funny things. So you're gonna wanna make sure it's the right size. Now, I did make a separate YouTube video about how I carry my spare and some of the benefits to it. It's free. Definitely go check that out. It doesn't cost you any money to get it off your tailgate and inside your rig. And it also does some cool stuff like storing and securing all your other tools with leaving your back seat completely open. So check it out if you have a JKU. But without further ado, let's jump on into the rig. Let's check out some of the tools I bring. All right, so as you can see, this is the back of the rig. Obviously, my spare tire goes in here. Like I said, go check out that video. You'll see exactly how I secure it. I have a 10-inch powered sub over here on the left, but it gives me plenty of room to stick my tools in there, right? I'm able to stick a battery-operated impact gun over there just to make quick work of all the lug nuts, and a couple of toolboxes. So let's check out this first one. All right, this toolbox has been around for a really long time, so it's got a bunch of weird stickers on it and that kind of stuff. But here's the bottom line, right? Common things anytime you're out on the trail is what you're gonna wanna make sure you have inside of a trail toolbox. Now guys, when I say common things, I mean things that are commonly gonna go wrong. Things that are available very easily at every auto parts store across the country. But when you're out on a trail, you don't have an auto parts store necessarily around the corner, right? So you're gonna wanna make sure that you can at least get it off the trail or to an area where you can access a tow truck. So what I have in my rig is obviously I got some blue thread lock, right? I mean, you can put that on things to help keep them tight. You can get creative with it. I have a spare radiator cap. I mean, you just never know, right? And it doesn't take up much space. Because I have a Dana 60, and again, it doesn't take up much space, I did wind up throwing in one of the snap rings for the outer axle shaft on the front. I have a spare in there. Socket extension, right? I got a bunch of those, just some random zip ties, right? All different lengths, those are a good idea. And any particular tools that you're gonna need that are actually very specific, right? Like these, I have the snap ring, but now I have the snap ring pliers that are hooked on the end, right? So that's gonna allow me to get snap rings in and out on like enduro joints and things like that. So it's a good idea if you ever pop apart an enduro joint, right, that you can actually get that snap ring back. I'm a big proponent, okay, of quality tools, but I think it also makes sense for most of us to pack a trail toolbox and keep it labeled as a trail toolbox and never open it unless you're out on the trail. So in order to prevent myself from spending a ton of money on tools that I'm barely ever gonna use, I actually went to Harbor Freight and I filled my trail toolbox with Harbor Freight tools. Now, if I was using them every day in my own garage, I would definitely not fill it with Harbor Freight tools. However, for a trail toolbox, once in the blue moon type stuff, Harbor Freight adjustable wrenches, some different sizes, things like that, they're the perfect thing to have in there, okay? And that's exactly what I did. I'm not gonna show you all of those because they're just varied sizes and lengths and things like that, but it works. I also have a set of Torx bits and Allen keys, okay? These will obviously go on the end of various size socket wrenches, But as you know, on these Jeeps, there's lots of Torx bits, and when you start changing them and modifying them, there's definitely a lot of Allen keys and things like that. So I have that in there. I also, guys, have a, this is crucial, okay? If you have a newer model Jeep, I have a wheel speed sensor, pig sensors, guys. If your wheel speed sensor goes, it's gonna cause your Jeep to do some funny things. It might even throw it into limp mode if you have more than one go. And with flexing your suspension, sometimes you can pull on the wires, they get caught on a rock, anything can happen. So having one out there that you can just clip in, cut the old one off and just twist the wires together to get you home, right? Not a big deal, doesn't take up any space, and it's a spare. So if I need this in the future, I know where it is in my trail toolbox, whether I'm on the trail or at home. So it's a good thing to have, all right? The other good thing to have is a code reader, okay? Now, I use a different computer system for my rig. That computer system is awesome, but I had to load my VIN number into it and that cost me money. So when I go out there with my friends, I don't want to necessarily have to spend money, especially where I have no cell phone signal and can't get the app to take the money, on loading their VIN number into my scanner so that it'll actually function and work. So I just have a cheap scanner in there from an auto parts store, right? Just something that's in there that's gonna help me out. And it makes a really thermostat in there, right? Just a spare, an old thermostat, a bunch of hose clamps, things like that. I have some rubber hose in there, guys. And I'll tell you what, and of course a roll of duct tape, right? Rubber hose is a really big deal because if you split a radiator hose or something out on the trail, or a friend of yours does, and you're starting to dump coolant everywhere, usually we have water with us, so you can refill it with water to get you off the trail, but you got to plug that hole, right? So being able to cut a big piece of hose, right, and kind of lay it over the hole like a Band-Aid, cutting it open so it's not a round hose anymore. Lay it over the hole like a Band-Aid, zip tie it, wrap it in duct tape, do whatever you got to do to slow the leak so you can top it off and get it to a place where you can actually fix it or get it towed. Guys, worth its weight in gold, right? So things like that, you just got to get creative. You kind of got to be like a redneck MacGyver when you're out there on the trail. Make sure that you can get yourself off the trail and back to an area where you can repair it or get help. Because I have a battery operated impact with me, I do have a cheap set of basic Harbor Freight impact sockets. I also have a smaller regular socket set, right? Because obviously anything under this Jeep, suspension link related, whatever, drive shafts, you're gonna need a socket wrench. Behind my sub, in the distance at the bottom between the rear seat and the sub, because the sub is a box and the rear seat is slanted, there's a little bit of a gap at the bottom. I actually slide a torque wrench in there, right? And I have 2 torque wrenches in there. I know some are gonna say it's a little bit overkill, but it's only overkill until you're out on the trail and you need it and you don't have it, right? But what I use is I need 2 different torque wrenches because all the suspension components on my rig and on my friends' rigs obviously are torqued to a pretty high pound-feet, pretty high torque spec. But bead locks, okay, your bead ring is torqued only to like 16, 17 pound-feet on a race line, and my torque wrench doesn't do that. So I needed to have a second torque wrench if I ever had an issue with a bead ring or with replacing a bolt or something like that, or removing a bead ring for whatever reason, I could actually do it and then retorque it correctly, right? You don't want to be running down the road and have one of those come apart. That wouldn't be good. So guys, those are the basic tools that I throw in this rig. Obviously, I have things like recovery straps and gloves and, you know, bubber rope recovery straps and, you know, all other kinds of things, soft shackles. You know, I have a jack stand in there. I got a high lift on the hood, right? So I feel like in pretty much any situation, I can at least get the rig back to an area, and I've said it before, where I can get it to a tow truck, to a trailer, or to an area where then I can hop in a friend's rig, go to the auto parts store, get back to the park, and be able to fix whatever the issue is in order to get me home. Anyway, guys, be smart when you're out there on the trail, okay? You kind of have to be a little self-sufficient. A lot of these parks do not offer recovery service, and if they do, you better believe it is super, super expensive to get a rig removed off of a trail for something stupid that you could have fixed for $5, right? So be smart, okay? Load your rig up. Again, you know, this is one of those be prepared, have it and don't use it rather than wish you had it and need it situations. And that's it, guys. Keep it fun, all right? Keep it safe. Make sure you have water with you. Make sure you have a first aid kit, you know, make sure you have a tire plug kit, you know, basic things, right? Guys, that's it, all right? So Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it helped some of you guys, but get out there on the trail and have a great time.